So here's something leaders struggle with a lot when they're trying to drive change. They're trying to bring everyone along all at the same time, right? Let's all get involved. Let's all participate. There are even some change models that encourage people to create a sense of urgency, like a company-wide sense of urgency. This is difficult to do when you're trying to actually drive change. Bringing everyone along is just a crazy idea, actually. I was once having a conversation with a colleague who had a big launch event to start their change process. So they were the chief innovation officer, they were going to build an innovation lab, and they were going to bring all these changes into the organization. So they had a massive launch event to introduce this new chief innovation officer, CEO speaking about change and innovation culture and all of these things. And actually, after a few months, this colleague told me that if it had been up to him, given the experience that he just had, he would not have had the launch event. Because what the launch event did was it made him a target before he had any credibility within the organization. It would have been better for him to start small with discovery and then over time start building that credibility and then implement the changes. And the other thing about trying to reach everyone is that you don't even need to reach everybody in the organization to reach the tipping point, right? Research is starting to show us that you only need to get up to 25% of people involved in your project or supporting the idea to reach the tipping point. Once you get to 25% plus of the organization, you're now at that point where change becomes harder to actually stop. We call this the tipping point. And so you only need to get to 25%. There's no need to do company-wide launches. Unless there's some regulation or something like that that's putting you under pressure to make the change company-wide, you can really start to move slowly, piece by piece. So what's the problem with the big launch event? What is the problem when you engage everyone all at the same time? Well, what you do when you do that at the beginning of the change initiative is that you trigger resistance before your initiative has momentum. And so it makes it easier for people to start creating situations that make it difficult for you to become successful. Because in a transformation journey, the best way to create buy-in is to engage in small, consistent actions that produce visible results, and then you can use those results to create more buy-in. And the more and more of that you do, you're now in this situation where you're creating what we call the momentum flywheel. So rather than have a big launch event, what you need to do is work with early adopters to create visible results and then use those visible results to build momentum. And this is what my colleague was actually talking about, right? He was talking about he wishes he had actually started by building visible results. And there's several folks that have done this, right? Claudia Kochka, when she was working at P&G, she first created visible results with the Mr. Clean brand. And then she was able to leverage those results to then bring everybody into design thinking, which was the initiative that she was actually driving. So it's really important to start small and then bring others along over time. So the goal of the transformation journey then is not to go big bang or go company wide. What you're trying to do is you're more like an army. Or what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a foothold. You're trying to gain a foothold in the organization. And then when you create a solid base, you can then start to cascade the change across the organization. And so in order to gain a foothold, you can run something we call an ignite sprint, which is just the early stages of driving change, where you begin with discovery, you find your early champions, you work with those early champions, and you create visible results. And you can do this within 3 months, 3 to 6 months. And then as soon as you do that, you're then now ready to use internal stories to cascade the change to the rest of the organization. So if the Ignite Sprint is something that's interesting for you, please get in touch with us, because that's something we actually offer at PMXV.